The final weeks of Fortnite Season 2 are here, and from a whole new biome to earthquakes and jungle vines, this has been a really fun season to say the least, and it all began with the arrival of Mega City through the Rift Gate. In Fortnite's Fracture event, the old map was completely obliterated, and the 0 Point had to pull together new realities to ultimately form the new Chapter 4 island. One of these chosen realities was inhabited by an earlier version of the Imagined Order, and the member that we want to focus on in particular is called the Rift Warden. In last season's storyline quests, the Rift Warden was manipulated to build a portal that was meant to lead to the last reality. But just as the device was about to have its correct coordinates set, everything was changed up and sabotaged by none other than the Peace Syndicate. The Peace Syndicate are a criminal-based faction that have been threatened by the last reality's destruction of their entire home. This is of course part of the Nothing's overarching plan to end all realities and leave only Nothing behind, which provides peace and quiet. The Omniverse is a total chaotic mess, and the Nothing just wishes to return it to a state of silence, and you know, maybe that's a good idea because things would be so much less dramatic, but for the sake of a good plot, we're gonna stick to Evie's side. Evie is a criminal member of the Peace Syndicate, and Mega City is her hometown, which she is definitely not giving up without a fight. In the first set of story quests for this season, Evie contacts us and essentially pleads for help. She will do anything to save her homeworld, even if that means she has to team up with a zesty sushi lizard in a jacket that's admittedly pretty drippy and a random mindless looper who quite literally just shoots people for a living. But hold on, let's go back to that lizard, because his name's Thunder. He's like a lizard man, I don't know, he seems quite confused and I'm very confused too, but the point is he's Evie's boss, and the two of them hire us for a full-time job in uniting the syndicates of Mega City. You heard me right, the Peace Syndicate live in a massive city with many other factions, which are all organized syndicates, including the Fox Clan, the River Guard, the Luminaries, and of course the Unseen. The last reality is working with the Saboteur to mess with these syndicates and ultimately force them to fight against each other. That way the syndicates will be totally misled and distracted, and then the Nothing can carry out its plan of total destruction. But are the sabotages even working? I mean, surely the syndicates have more trust in each other just to fight after one small hiccup, right? Well, no, they most definitely do not. Earlier in this video, I mentioned two factions being the Fox Clan and of course the River Guard as well. And before I tell you exactly how those two are related, why don't you hit the subscribe button down below if you're enjoying the video so far. The Fox Clan are a cultural Japanese-based faction of hunters who wear a signature kitsune mask, and they've also harnessed the power of controlling and opening rifts at their own will. The Fox Clan members that we know of so far include Drift, Vi, Vox Hunter, and Catalyst, and then of course we have Stray, who we've only just met this season, and he perfectly ties into our next faction, who are the River Guard. The River Guard are similar to the Fox Clan in the aspect that they are yet another cultural Japanese group, but this time they have the ability to manipulate water and wind. And do you remember that Stray guy that I was just talking about? Well yeah, his sister is actually the Empress of this River Guard. Him and his sister Mizuki used to both be members of the River Guard, but they had a serious falling out, and their little petty arguments aren't very helpful considering the last reality of threatening to destroy the entire city. So if there's any syndicates that we really have to unite like immediately, it's these two for sure. Despite the fact that these two syndicates have a huge sibling rivalry between Stray and Mizuki, we can still attempt to inform them that if they don't figure their shit out soon enough, we're kinda sorta maybe just like all gonna die, which you know, I think it's a pretty good reason considering the circumstances, and to our surprise, they actually agree with us. The Fox Clan have always been said to have been hunted by something old and bad and ancient, and a member of the Fox Clan named Drift literally had his girlfriend torn away from him by a cube, which would be really tough. So it seems more like the Fox Clan are doing this for hatred rather than the family connection, but that's alright. At least these two first syndicates are friends, and now we can move on to the next step of our plan. The whole reason that the syndicates need to come together instead of fighting all comes down to the Saboteur, but the problem is we do not know who that Saboteur is or why they're doing what they're doing. The Peace Syndicate have searched for evidence, but nothing really seems to be there, and no one else seems to be talking about these acts of sabotage either. That is only until we get a message from the Luminaries, who are yet another new faction to the storyline this season. The Luminaries are the most knowledgeable syndicate in the entirety of Mega City, and their group was founded by Mystica, who is a fabled survivor from a world long lost. Mystica's homeworld is actually super interesting as it contains plant life that looks super similar to the Herald. This world is speculated to be called the Pluxarian home planet, and we get the term Pluxarian from various cosmetics that are related to the last reality. All these purple plants also look very similar to the Aftermath as well, which is very interesting, and this faction or race of plant-like people seemingly had their world destroyed by the Nothing's army. And just before they destroyed everything, the Herald surrendered and joined them, but Mystica stood strong, found a new home in Mega City, and vowed to never back down if the last reality returned to her. And what do you know? It seems like they have come full circle, and she's prepared to fight with whatever it takes, whilst also exposing the Saboteur. The only other member of this this luminary syndicate that we currently know of is named Captain Hypatia. Hypatia lost her entire fleet likely to this same attack that was performed by the Nothing, so I can completely understand why the luminaries do not like these guys. But back to the plan. The Peace Syndicate need help, and the luminaries send through information on our sabotaging enemy, and they also tell us that whoever's behind all of this has also stole some of their new tech, so we go in to investigate what's happened, and the only thing they stole was some moss from some jars, which really does not sound important at all, so this should all be fine, right? I mean, they're not causing any harm. Well, no, it's actually not fine at all. Whilst the syndicates have been investigating, 3 new characters have started causing trouble in Mega City, and their names are Styx, Dahlia, and of course Nox. But let's start with Styx and Dahlia. These two are causing trouble all on the front line and blowing up cars and breaking laws, and just doing all kind of dumb things that you really shouldn't make obvious if you're doing them, but I guess they don't care, because behind the scenes there is Triarch Nox. Dahlia has told him to stay in the shadows, but who really are these characters? And why are they so desperate to cause disturbance within the city? Well, Dahlia is a member of the syndicate known as the Unseen, and that syndicate is led mainly by 2 characters named Highwire and her right-hand man named Renzo. These 2 leaders had planned for the Unseen to take over Mega City entirely, and then ultimately, with their newfound power and authority, they would be able to stop the Last Reality from conquering their home. This plan would of course work in theory, but the faction has had some traitors within its ranks, and those traitors are Styx and Dahlia, and we'll get to their buddy Triarch Nox in a bit. Dahlia is called by a drive for pure self-perfection. We know she used to be somewhat human, but she modified and built herself a new body, and she also kept a backup version of her mind on a robotic spinal cord. I don't get what she's doing, but she's dedicated to it. Actually, she's way too dedicated, and she will do absolutely anything to build her own self-worth and power and perfection, even if that means teaming up with the consumer of realities, which, you know, it seems like a totally reasonable and safe idea. The Unseen traitors of course have a link to the Last Reality as well, and although we can't confirm who this is, most of the community are pretty sure it's Triarch Nox. The 3 of these characters seems to have built a really good relationship and plan. Dahlia will sabotage the syndicate, Styx just sorta hangs alongside her, and Triarch Nox is sticking to the shadows, hacking terminals, and making way for the return of the Nothing and the Last Reality. This all sounds pretty bad, right? Well, just when things can't get any worse, we've realized that the Peace Syndicate have messed up really bad. To prevent the Nothing, they manipulated the function of the Rift Gate to bring in Mega City to our island, and that allowed us to help them out and single out their enemies, but what they didn't factor in is that the island is all being held together by the 0 point. It is trying its best to hold onto an autumn biome, a grassy biome, an arrangement of mountains, and we just went ahead and dropped a massive futuristic Japanese city on top of it, and the 0 point can't take it, so the island is falling apart and there doesn't seem to be much we can do. But in the newest update, jungle vines have started growing out through the ground, and I think this is the 0 point trying to hold the island together. But I'd also love to hear your own theories in the comments, and I'll see you all in the tropical wastelands of Season 3.